So this is the second video in a series I've just started called Watch This Article, which is where I take an article that I've read and enjoyed and learned something from, and I turn it into a video. And the idea came about when I was thinking about how people learn differently. So some people like to read articles, other people like to watch videos, and some people like to have discussions with friends, and that's how they learn. And I remember I was having a conversation with a friend and I was sharing something about an article and something that I'd learned, and they said, "Oh, that's great, I really want to try that myself." And so that's what I'm trying to do in these videos. I'm trying to take things that I've learned and share them with you. So the article that I'll be talking about today is called Competent Jerks, Lovable Fools, and the Formation of Social Networks. The article was written by Tiziana Casciaro and Miguel Souza Lobo. So I don't want to waste anyone's time, so I thought I'd give a quick overview of what the article is about before I go into detail. The authors did research on how people work in different organizations, and they found that when people need help with a problem, the way that they choose people, it depends on likability and competence. So how much they like a person and how good a person is at their job. And they found that when people are choosing someone to work with, they will often choose someone who is more likable than someone who is more capable. And in their article, they go through the implications that that has for organizations and for getting things done. And that's what I'll be taking you through today. So if this is your first time watching one of my videos, my name is David Milan. I'm an HR professional working in Australia. And over the course of my career, I've spent lots of time with employees, helping them with career-related questions and helping them to get better at their careers. And that's what I like to do with my videos. I thought I'd give a quick explanation regarding my moustache. I am doing Movember this year and I am raising funds. I'm currently at $500, but I would really like to get to $1,000. So if you would like to make a donation, that would be greatly appreciated. I just noticed that I have 591 subscribers, which is still crazy for me to think about. I'm super grateful that people are finding my content useful. And I was thinking if each one of my subscribers gives me $1 towards the Movember Foundation, I'd easily make it to 1,000. So as I mentioned, the link is in the description. If you would like to make a donation, it's for a great cause. So Tiziana and Miguel studied 4 different organizations, picked to ensure there was a wide range of attributes. So not-for-profit and for-profit, small and large, North American and European. So as part of their study, they asked people to record how many work-related interactions that they had had with people in their organizations. And then they asked them to rate how much they liked that person and also rate how good they were at their job. And they collected data on over 10,000 work relationships. So this rating system, likability and competence, produces 4 archetypes. The first one is the competent jerk, someone who's good at their job but not very likable. The lovable star, someone who's really good at their job and everyone likes and people want to work with. The lovable fool, someone who doesn't know a lot, they're not very good at their job, but they're really nice to be around and people like them. And the incompetent jerk, which is pretty obvious. Obviously, you could argue that these archetypes represent extremes in an organization, and it is unlikely that organizations will tolerate people who aren't very good at their job or who don't play well with others for a long period of time. But the matrix and the archetypes can be used to easily rank people that you work with, and it gives you a way to think about the people that you are interacting with. So during their research, Tiziana and Miguel confirmed what you already know. Everyone wants to work with the lovable star and everyone avoids the incompetent jerk. But their research uncovered something interesting about what happens when people have to choose between a lovable fool and a competent jerk. When people have to choose between those 2 archetypes, a lot of the time, people will choose likability over competence. A lot of people talk about how they would choose whoever is best to get the job done, but their research uncovered that likability plays a really, really important role. And they discovered that when someone is likable, people will seek out and look for competence in them, and they will look at things through that lens. In contrast, if someone is really good at their job, but they are strongly disliked, people will go out of their way to avoid them. As an HR professional, part of my role is to coach people on how to deal with relationships in the workplace, and you'd be surprised how often this comes up. Employees will need information from someone or they'll need help with something, and they will deliberately avoid going to that person, to that competent jerk, because they don't want to deal with them. And obviously this is really inefficient and it's not very productive. And in their article, Tiziana and Miguel go through a 3-part strategy on how you can deal with this problem, and that's what I'll be taking you through now. So the first component of the strategy that Tiziana and Miguel go through is called manufacture liking, and that has 3 parts: promote familiarity, redefine similarity, and foster bonding. So let's talk about the first one, promote familiarity. They go through a really interesting example in the article. There was a psychological experiment conducted years ago in which a person was shown 2 identical images of themselves, and one of them was a reverse image. So it was a photo of themselves and it was flipped. So in the study, the reversed image was consistently chosen as the preferred image because it's the image that we are used to seeing. So it's the image that we're used to seeing in the mirror. And it's an example that shows how we prefer familiarity. We prefer to work with people that we are familiar with. And this is why organizations sometimes mix different departments together and have them seated close to each other. So in some organizations, you'll have finance and IT and HR and marketing all working together. So they're different functions, but just by having them co-located, it can increase that familiarity and increase liking amongst them. So I've worked in both types of organizations, and I found that there are a lot of benefits to being seated with people from different functions. It can assist with collaboration, but I'm really interested to hear from anyone who's watching what you have observed in the different organizations that you've worked in. So if you do feel confident, leave a line in the comments and tell us what you prefer or what you've experienced over the course of your career. So the second component of how to manufacture liking is redesign similarity. And in their article, Tiziana and Miguel go through a specific example regarding marketing. And whilst I work in HR, a few years ago, I completed a Master of Marketing degree, which I've covered in a separate video that I'll include in the description, so you can have a look at the things that HR and knowledge professionals can learn from marketing, particularly in relation to services marketing. So in their article, they go through the differences that come up between market researchers and general marketers. So apparently these 2 groups can sometimes be wary of each other. They often have competing priorities and different allegiances and different focuses. So in order to redesign similarity, if you were to put those 2 groups together, so you were to assemble a team of marketers and market researchers, instead of one group thinking about market research and development, and another group thinking about products, if you put them together and said you are now part of the product X team, they would start to think of themselves as part of that team as opposed to the function that they represent. And so assembling people in that way and getting them to think differently is a way that you can redesign similarity. Okay, so the final part of how to manufacture liking is to foster bonding. So if you're anything like me, you've probably been to a lot of team building and team bonding exercises over the course of your career, which are designed to foster bonding and increase familiarity and manufacture liking amongst employees. I know that some people don't like them, but there is a reason that organizations use them. So in their article, Tiziana and Miguel go through a social experiment that was conducted close to 60 years ago. Muzaffar Sharif, a social psychologist, brought groups of 11 and 12-year-old boys together in a camp setting. So he separated them into 2 different groups, and then they conducted exercises which were designed to increase the animosity between the 2 groups. So he made them compete against each other. After a series of competitive activities, he brought them together in a fun setting to see if that would reduce feelings of anger between the 2 groups. It didn't. In actual fact, they fought more. And he determined that something else was needed in order to start fostering goodwill between the 2 groups, and that was that they needed to work together. And so he designed a series of incidents and experiences designed to do just that. So in one example that's referenced in the article, the boys were traveling in a truck and the truck broke down, and so he brought the 2 groups together and they had to work to push the truck up a hill. And after going through that experience where they had to work together, they were able to see an increase in the good relationships and the bonding between the 2 groups. So this concept is used by organizations, which is probably why you've been invited to an escape room or you've had to build a tower using straws and marshmallows. The danger, as pointed out by Tiziana and Miguel, is that as soon as it starts to feel inauthentic or it starts to feel forced, it dramatically loses its effectiveness. So that is something to consider when you are putting together a team day or when you are trying to foster bonding amongst different employees. Let's discuss the second component of Tiziana and Miguel's strategy, which is leverage the likable, and that is achieved by identifying, protecting, and positioning. In terms of identifying, leaders should take the time to think about the emotional component of work and what an employee brings beyond just their technical skills. And in lots of organizations that I've worked in the past, leaders tend to default just to technical prowess and how people perform, as opposed to whether they are likable or not. But emotional intelligence and soft skills really matter. So that is the first step. Leaders should think about, who is it in my team that I see people want to be around. So once you've done that, it's important to think about how you can protect them. So in their article, Tiziana and Miguel talk about a concept which they call an effective hub. And an effective hub is a person who brings together different groups within an organization and helps them to communicate and helps to make those connections. And those types of employees are really valuable to an organization. And often they are overlooked when it comes to restructuring or to downsizing. And in their article, they point out the caution that should be taken when you are downsizing in an organization, to think about who should be protected, not just from a technical component, but also from a likability component. Who is it that is an effective hub that brings different people together? And those people should be thought of when you are looking at restructuring. So the final way to leverage likable is to put them in roles where you can take advantage of the effective hub role that they play. And whilst that is an informal role, it is really a valuable role, and it's something that's overlooked by organizations. So if you're putting together a project team that needed to roll out a change program or promote a different way of thinking within an organization, that would be a great role for an effective hub, because they're really, really effective at linking different parts of the organization and ensuring that people are brought together. Okay, so we've covered how to manufacture liking and how to leverage the likable, but what about the jerks? What do we do about them? In the final part of their strategy, Tiziana and Miguel go through a strategy that you can use to reform the jerks in your organization. So the first way to do this is to think carefully about their contribution. How are they contributing to the organization? If they are contributing in a way that is inconsistent with the organization's values, then obviously you have to have a conversation with them. Tiziana and Miguel suggest that you reward good behavior and you punish bad behavior, which is easier to say, but when you're dealing with adults, it can be hard to do. In their article, they go through a specific example of a high performer who was denied a promotion due to the way that he interacted with people. So he's really good with clients, really good with customers, but when he was dealing with internal employees, he wasn't very good. And so in order to provide some form of corrective action, some form of punishment, they withheld a promotion. So after this, the boss used coaching to help reform the jerk. So he pulled him up on behaviors immediately after they occurred, and he pointed out that the behavior that he was demonstrating was self-defeating. It was holding him back. And after a period of time and lots of coaching from the leader, the employee was able to improve and received a promotion. So that's an example of how you can reform the jerks. So that's it, that's the article. Just to do a quick summary, the key points as outlined by Tiziana and Miguel are to manufacture liking, to leverage the likable, and to reform the jerks. Obviously, you still have to be good at your job, but what I think is the key takeaway in the article is that likability, those soft skills, are often overlooked by leaders and often overlooked by employees. So for me, that's something that I'm conscious of and something that I think about. And I hope that it's something that you can think about as well after watching this video. I'll include a link in the description to the article if you would like to read through it yourself. I think it's a fantastic article, and it's something that I read from time to time just to refresh my thinking and to think about different ways to get things done. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.